A boss gives answers because they want control. A coach asks better questions because they want expansion. What do you want, control or expansion? Why do some leaders get extraordinary results year after year, while others with the same exact budget, the same exact talent, constantly struggle with turnover, low engagement, and inconsistent performance? We got to talk about this. The answer is not a lack of talent. It's a flawed leadership philosophy. For decades, here's what's happened. Corporate America has taught us to be bosses, to command, control, manage tasks. But here's the truth. The world's highest performing organizations weren't built by bosses. They were built by coaches. And I'm gonna prove it to you. The true metric of your leadership is a question you might not be asking yourself. If you ask yourself the right question, you're gonna get the right answer. Here's a question. What happens to people that leave your circle? Do they go on to lead and do incredible things? Do they build and do they multiply excellence after they leave you somewhere else? Or are they just gears in your machine who burn out the moment they step away from you? Here's the truth. Hear me clearly. I hope this stings. It should make you feel good. Bosses create dependence. Coaches create multipliers. They plant roots of leadership that are so deep they can outlast the leader themselves. So today, we're going to break down 3 legendary leaders that nailed it. These are case studies on how to coach in the business world. John Wooden, Bill Campbell, and Steve Jobs, to show you how the greatest leaders in the world multiplied themselves and how you can do the same exact thing in your organization and really define your legacy as a leader. So let's start with basketball on the hardwood, the world I came from, with the man who won 10 national championships in 12 years. That's absolute dominance. John Wooden. Now, if you ask a modern corporate boss how to dominate their industry, they have no clue. Why? Because they're not really coaching, they're just controlling. 10 championships in 12 years. He is so rare and so different. We talk about him constantly because he didn't talk about winning. He didn't talk about championships. If you walk into a practice, he was obsessed with daily behaviors. That's what was important to him. He spent the first day of the season teaching grown men, elite athletes, how to tie their shoes and put on socks so they don't get blisters. Bill Walton talked about John Wooden all day. He would not shut up. He wasn't managing the outcome. He was laying foundation of excellence. Wooden's entire philosophy was based on a simple truth. Success is a peace of mind, which is the direct result of self-satisfaction and knowing you did your best to become the best person that you're capable of becoming. That is deep. And here's your corporate breakdown. Be clear, let me hear you. Hear me clearly. Bosses chase outcomes. Coaches build people, and people build the business. When you operate in boss mode, you treat your employees like a tool to hit your number. Get me this report. Hit this quota, but tools don't grow, and tools can't innovate. When you shift to coach mode, you'll realize that your actual job, what you're really getting paid to do, is to grow your people. In fact, if a business isn't growing, all you need to do is look at leadership. Businesses don't grow people, people grow businesses. Let's look at what happened to Wooden's players throughout their whole lives. They didn't just win championships or play in the NBA. Most of them went on to be wildly successful. CEOs, authors, actors, lawyers, community leaders. His leadership expanded beyond basketball. Why? Because the roots of his leadership that he planted in his players were about character, discipline, and potential. And that transcends basketball. So let's talk about Silicon Valley, the most valuable land in America. If you ask who built the tech revolution, you name the obvious geniuses: Steve Jobs, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Jeff Bezos, Eric Schmidt. But there's one man I want to talk about who never wrote a line of code, never launched a product, yet he shaped every single one of these companies. His name was Bill Campbell, known simply across the valley as Coach. Coach Bill Campbell was an old college football coach. Duh, he got it. He stumbled into technology. But when Apple was struggling, when Google was scaling, and when Amazon was fighting to survive, the CEO didn't call a consultant or traditional corporate boss. They called Coach Bill. Why? Here's why. Because Bill Campbell understood the law of multiplication. If you can understand that law, your leadership will never be the same. He knew that the ultimate product wasn't the iPhone. It was not a search engine. It's not e-commerce. His product was the thinking of the leaders running those companies. That's deep. He didn't give them technical answers. He taught them how to build teams and how to lead with absolute integrity and clarity. Let's look at the scoreboard of his career. His impact didn't stop with the companies he ran. It actually multiplied exponentially through the leaders he developed. The roots he planted in Steve Jobs get passed down to Tim Cook. The roots he planted in Eric Schmidt got passed down through generations of Google. I mean, these executives for generations were impacted by Coach. And that is the difference. Bosses create a hierarchy where they are the smartest person in the room. But coaches are built different. Coaches build an ecosystem that multiplies the intelligence of everyone. Now, right now, don't you want to be a coach and stop being a boss? If your leadership style requires everyone to sign off, if your leadership style requires you and your people to sign off for everything, and you cannot function when you go on vacation, you've not built an organization. You built a cage, and you're the prisoner of your own cage that you built. Your greatest legacy is not what you personally build. It's the caliber of the leaders that you're building and your organization produces. Now, some of you might say, Walter, come on, man, let's be realistic. Bill Campbell, okay, whatever. I have to be demanding. I have a business to run. I gotta be tough. I'm not talking about being tough. I'm talking about being a coach. Let's talk about one of the men that Bill Campbell impacted, Steve Jobs. Are you kidding me? Steve Jobs was famous for being intense. He was demanding. But if you look past all of that, he was a case study in a coaching style that was a masterclass in stretching human capacity. Jobs didn't settle for the first answer. He didn't accept average. He didn't want people being comfortable in their thinking. When engineers told Steve Jobs that a task was mathematically impossible, that a screen could not be made of glass, or an operating system couldn't be any faster, Steve Jobs didn't yell. He didn't throw a pity party. He didn't yell and scream. He didn't demand compliance like a traditional boss. Instead, he would look them in the eye and say, come on, you can do it. Don't be afraid. Just think about this differently. He pushed his team beyond what they believed was possible, and they did the unthinkable because he was always pushing them to become a better version of themselves. And that's what coaching is all about. They had to abandon their own limitations. And that's what a true coach does. A boss gives answers because they want control. A coach asks better questions because they want expansion. What do you want, control or expansion? When an employee comes to you with a problem, a boss says, do it this way, and it's over. It takes about 10 seconds. It feels powerful. It feels efficient. But a coach, different. When you do it that way, you just shrink the brain to the size of your instruction. A coach looks at them and will ask a question. Well, what do you think our options are? If you didn't have a budget or any constraint, how would you solve this problem? Now, as a coach, you're forcing them to think differently, think bigger, and you're building their judgment. So you're learning the next generation of leaders because they're going to be taking over your company. It might only take another 90 seconds to do it. And you will buy yourself a lifetime of self-sustaining, high-performing teammates who are poised to be your company's next level of generation of leaders, and it will build your legacy. So let's bring this home. When history finally looks you back in your career, remember your leadership. They're not going to look at your spreadsheet. They're not going to look at your quarterly numbers. All they're going to care about are all the people that you produced. If you can really focus on that, that's what coaching is all about. The people who work for you will remember who they became under your leadership. And since they simply crossed paths with you, they've never been the same. They're going to remember your systems. They're going to remember your quotes. They're going to remember all the things you unlocked in them. And they're going to trust you forever because that's the ultimate difference between being a boss and becoming a coach. It requires you to step back from the urge to fix everything, but instead make a commitment to multiply your people. It might mean you need to shift your model. Your leadership model might need to shift. You got to get away from short-term compliance to long-term development. Take a look at your team tomorrow. Notice where you are commanding and ask yourself where you could be coaching instead. Plant those roots of leadership today, right now. My name's Walter Bond, and listen to me. Hey, coach, let's keep making progress together. Let's stop being a boss and start being coaches because your legacy depends on it. See you soon.